So I went back again and again and again, and she kept doing tests. She finally called me and said, there's nothing wrong with you. She said, you could go see the local shrink here.
Hey guys, it's Donnie here, and I just want to let you know that we've recently launched a content development company, and this company helps people get social content. You need to put out a lot of content nowadays to get engagement out there in all your social platforms. Well, we've come up with a really cool way to help you get videos, blog posts, memes, social posters, and infographics for whatever social site you need. So check us out at successchamps.us and learn more about how you can get social content for your social media.
Support for this podcast comes from Point Blank Safety Services and Blue Family Fund. Blue Family Fund, helping dependents of law enforcement families on their journeys. Blue Family Fund is a nonprofit that raises funds and offers financial support through higher education scholarships for dependents of law enforcement officers and by providing financial assistance for families of fallen law enforcement officers. Every dollar donated will go to the families of police officers, either through scholarships to dependents of police officers or as aid to fallen officers' families. Visit us at bluefamilyfund.com.
You're listening to Donnie Success Champions, where I believe everybody is on a journey. Life is all about the stories you can tell and teach later. You're going to hear the stories of people who have overcome hardships, failures in life to find success along their journey. All right, guys, so this is going to be a fun episode. So I'm talking to Cheryl, and we are just going to go on and on about how she self-diagnosed, self-healed herself, and we're going to talk about diets. You're going to hear my smart-ass side come out as, I make fun of her in some of the things she does, but it's a really, really, really solid message, and I love how genuine and passionate she is. She's about sharing the things that she's doing and how she is, taking it on as part of her task to help change the world and the things they're doing. Enjoy this one, guys. All right, guys, going to be another fun episode today. I'm bringing you Miss Cheryl Meyer, and got a pretty wild story about some of the things she's gone through in her life, so I'm looking forward to this one. So, Miss Cheryl, welcome to the show, my dear. Please share your story.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to start down the road a little ways because 7 years ago, I had my own jewelry business. Life was good, and I woke up one morning and I couldn't get out of bed because everything in my body hurt from top to toe. Every muscle, every joint. I had brain fog. I was fatigued. I went to my conventional doctor. She did some tests and she called me and said, there's nothing wrong with you. Well, obviously there's something wrong with me. I hurt. So I went back again and again and again, and she kept doing tests. She finally called me and said, there's nothing wrong with you. She said, you could go see the local shrink here. I said, well, it's not in my head. Trust me, it's in my body. And she said, they'll give you steroids. I said, well, I don't want steroids. So that's kind of where this part of my journey began.
All right. So for me, if I'm on a Saturday morning something and I wake up and I ache and I hurt and everything is like uncomfortable, that's because I probably abused myself the night before with way too much alcohol. But this wasn't the case.
That was not the case. And actually, I joke now that I just wasn't listening to my body. There were signs all the way along that I was getting sick. Ended up, I had autoimmune disease. First, I had the little beep on the face. Then I got the NCIS slap on the back of my head. And then finally, I got hit by the 2x4. And I didn't even know what I was looking for when I started to research. I just knew I was not going to live a life of pain and pills. Both my parents had unusual diseases. I had done a lot of research for them and ended up sometimes knowing more than the doctor. So I would go with them to their appointments and I would challenge them. So I knew I could find stuff if I really dug. And I figured out it was probably autoimmune disease. that was causing my problem because I had had symptoms of toxic load building up, which were all these little boom bangs, 2x4s and things that were hitting me in the head. Little things like, first, I couldn't be around anybody with perfume. Then I couldn't wear deodorant because they either made me rash or they made me blister. Then I couldn't wear mascara because they made my eyes all crazy. Then one morning I woke up and my tongue and my lips were swollen and I could almost not swallow and my eyes were swollen. That was when we were getting to the NCIS slap across. And then finally I woke up and I couldn't function. So that's where I started researching. And at the time, I was in a 10-year relationship, and he woke up and looked at me one morning and said, "I don't like it that you're sick." I said, okay. We hadn't gotten married. I didn't think that was a problem, but I didn't know that that meant he was going to abandon me when I got sick. He said, "Yeah, I don't like it that you're sick."
Right.
I said, "Okay, what would you like me to do about that?" So we broke up. So in addition to all the health stuff that was going on, suddenly he was gone. But things start to work out. I took a class at 65 on how to find a better guy that was better suited for me. And I'll be darned, I took the class from a woman named Allison Armstrong. And she looked at me and she said, "Cheryl, there are 2 million men out there perfect for you, but your problem is you're trying to fit into their life, and you need to write down what you want and let them come to you." So I made the list of what I wanted. I said, I want a guy who wants to go on a get well journey with me because I need the support. And I'm not sure what I'm doing yet, but it's going to be something that if you join me, you're going to get well too. I need a guy who's honest and ethical and who's smart enough to keep me on my toes. And I posted it on the old fogey dating site, which is our time. And it took me 3 days for a guy who lived 10 minutes away from me to contact me. And he started off by saying, "Well, let's start with can I keep you on your toes? I'm a statistician, so I think I can do that." I said, "Well, wait a minute, bucko. I'm a right brain girl. I design jewelry. You're a left brain guy. Maybe we're not compatible." And he said, "Well, I was a lit major in college as my second major. My first major was mathematics." And I said, "Well, I was a lit major at Berkeley, so maybe we will get along." And he had just lost his wife to cancer. And he said, "If you'll meet me, I guarantee you I'm probably the nicest guy you ever met." And it's funny how an angel's hand gets on your back to take you from one place to another, because he is one of the nicest guys I've ever met. When I introduced him to my closest friend, she called me and she said, "Don't screw this one up." I really like this man. So
all right, guys. So that is complete proof that online dating works even into your 60s, right? So beautiful. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you meet Mr. I'm going to keep you on the short and narrow and do all the proper things.
And we did go on a get well journey, and he lost 80 pounds.
Wow.
I lost 45, and we weren't dieting. We started eating real food. I eliminated hundreds of toxins. I went back to health coaching school because I decided that I wanted to help other people who found themselves in my situation, and I find them all the time where doctors don't even listen to them. And then I wrote a book, "It Feels Good to Feel Good," about all the toxins that I removed and what I replaced them with. And so now I'm out doing podcasts and talking to the world because autoimmune disease is not so easy to figure out, and conventional doctors don't understand it. I ended up with something called a functional doctor, and literally between removing all the toxins and going to a functional doctor, she saved my life. And I'll tell you what a functional doctor is. You know what a conventional doctor is. I learned a lot of things about conventional doctors.
Right. Hold on one second for me. So let's start here. So you wake up and you can't move. Everything about you is pain. Your body's throbbing, and you realize there's something wrong.
Yep.
You get to a doctor. Doctor says there's nothing wrong with you. By the way,
you're crazy.
Yeah, you're crazy, right?
Yep.
And we joked you're from California, so that's a natural assumption. You're just crazy.
She's from California too, so she was crazy also.
So then it's a double whammy, right?
Yep.
And you realize that there's got to be a better solution. So you go out and you start researching on your own answers for how do I, figure all this out. And traditional medicine's not working for you.
No.
Which is, your non-functional doctor. How did you find this doctor that was going to get you on a different path?
Well, one of the things I tripped across when I got onto the internet was I started watching summits by functional doctors. And what I found interesting was they became functional doctors because they all got sick and they couldn't help themselves. And I watched 20 of them, and they each had maybe 10 or 15 episodes. And it kept coming back to the fact that I probably had autoimmune disease. I probably had something called leaky gut. So I thought, okay, if I have leaky gut, what can I do about this on my own? I could eliminate toxins and I could reduce my stress. So I started researching how to do that. And then I finally started researching where would I find a functional doctor. And a functional doctor, my doctor went to Yale. She went to Yale Medical School. She's a full MD, but she got sick and couldn't get well. So she went back for additional training in functional medicine. The difference is when you're in medical school, you don't get anything on nutrition at all. Maybe half a day at most. You learn they're run by the pharmaceutical companies. I didn't know that. Even 100 years ago when they were started by the pharmaceutical companies. So a conventional doctor listens to you. The average appointment time is 6 minutes. They hear the first symptom and they match it to a pill. And then you're on your way out the door and you go, wow, I didn't even tell them this and this and this and this. Functional medicine is completely different. It's called root cause medicine. When I went to see my doctor, we sat down and she said, not unusual. Most people who end up here with me have a story similar to yours. And she said, so let me explain it to you this way. You're sitting on a tack. Let's go find that tack. So all of the tests she ran were different. My conventional doctor checked my thyroid from here to here. My functional doctor checked my thyroid from here to my adrenals. And guess what? From here to here, I wasn't broken. From here to my adrenals, I was. And my conventional doctor tested me for allergies. The only thing I was allergic to was the tape that held the test on my back. My functional doctor tested me for sensitivities, and I had 18 of them. And by removing the 18 sensitivities, a lot of my pain went away right there. But then I got complicated. I tease her, I'm an onion. We keep taking layers off the onion and finding all kinds of stuff where my body is not working correctly.
So and here's one thing I will say is thank God that you had civilian doctors. And the only reason I say that because, being a military guy is if you went to saw a military doctor, they're like, here's some Motrin. Motrin's a cure-all for everything. And I've got stories of a corpsman trying to use Motrin paste on a wound on me where he literally crushed up Motrin and was going to put it in a wound. Yeah, that didn't happen. But when you're hearing this all for the first time from a doctor and they're telling you that it's other things, and you're going against the grain of traditional medicine.
Yeah, you begin to think you're crazy.
Right. That's where I'm getting at, too. Walk us through that battle because, we're constantly battling our upbringings and what we've always been told, and, the doctor's always right and that kind of stuff. Walk us a little bit through that journey.
I actually started off a little bit down that road because of my parents and their illnesses. Both of them had illnesses that were extremely unusual, and the pharmaceuticals became a bigger problem than what they had. So I was aware of it. My father had a very rare form of epilepsy, and they put him on phenobarbital. Phenobarbital became a huge issue, bigger than the rare form of epilepsy that he had. My mother got something really weird called multiple system atrophy. And at the time, they didn't know very much about it, but she was seeing the leading neurologist in Southern California for it. And at the time, they thought it was connected to Parkinson's. Right before she died, I read an article that it was connected to mad cow disease. And now I've read that, no, it has lesions that are similar, but it's not connected to mad cow disease.
One really quick funny thing about mad cow disease. At the time when I got out of the Marine Corps, I wasn't allowed to give blood because some of the countries I went to, not because I went to the country, is because there was no way to test for mad cow disease. So I couldn't give blood for fear of mad cow disease. It just always cracks.
I know. I can't remember father get that? And by the way, my husband is a Marine. He was a Marine in Nam. So he had some problems. It was good that we cleaned up his food, too, because he had some problems related back to Agent Orange.
Oh, absolutely. Agent Orange killed my father-in-law. So.
Yeah, he had prostate cancer. So by cleaning up all the food that we did together, he says he feels better now than he did in his late 40s, and he's 72. So to any vets who are out there, what I'm going to tell you is the right way to go, because medicine is not health. It's not going to lead you to health. Food is health.
Well, and what's really cool about that is I've had a couple of guys on the show. I get a lot of veterans on the show, and there's one story, and I can't ever remember if it's Alex Feiner or Chad Davenport. They're business partners, and one of those two guys was on like 22 pills a day from the medical world, and they had him on so much medication dealing with PTSD and everything else, he was physically in a live coma. I mean, he couldn't function. He couldn't get out of bed. And then another guy, Robert Caldwell, same thing, was on so many medications dealing with PTSD and physical issues. And for him, yoga and, of course, weed, which I don't know why the hell they don't legalize it at this point, but, got him off and out of that world and into it, show the government's answer for a lot of these solutions is throw pills at them.
Right. So, that's what they do.
Yep. And so I love the fact that you had the courage enough to go, maybe there's a better way.
Yeah. And because of my parents, I sort of started off there. And I even found out stuff about multiple system atrophy that my doctor didn't know. I would challenge him about stuff, and he'd go, who's the doctor? I go, who's the daughter? You got to listen. Just try me. Just humor me. Try it. And then he'd lose all the blood in his face because what I was suggesting was working. So I knew that if I researched, I might be able to find another answer. So for probably a year and a half, I just did research. I started eliminating toxins. There's an incredible database called EWG. It's not exactly user-friendly, but you can look everything up. So I started getting rid of the toxins and putting things in that were a 1 instead of a 10 on the 10-point scale. And then I hired my first doctor who was integrative, in between step. I drove all the way down to Orange County for him, which was an hour and a half. And I don't know if you remember Gary Larson, who did cartoons in the 80s and the early 90s. He had a cartoon where his character was talking to a dog. And so you could see the words coming out.
What was the name of the cartoon?
Far Side.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, absolutely.
So his character was talking to a dog, and you could see the words he was saying, and all the dog was hearing was blah, 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 blah.
Right.
That was me when I went to the integrative doctor. I had no clue what he was talking about, but it was my first introduction to a lot of things that ended up being very useful. I reached one point with him maybe 4 months down the road, and he said, Cheryl, you are very sick, and I don't know what to do with you. So I stopped going. You don't know what to do with me. Why am I going to keep going?
Right. It's like going to a mechanic and he looks at you and says, I don't know how to fix your car. You take it to another mechanic. I mean.
And so 6 years later, when I published the book, he wrote to me and said, why did you stop coming? I said, because you said you couldn't help me. He said, I was just frustrated that day. He said, but wow, have you come a long way? So, it just kept me, I just kept going. I just kept researching. And I had a jewelry business, which I turned over to my staff. I still have a staff who's running my jewelry business. I go in every once in a while, pat them on the head, tell them they're terrific. And I'm doing all health now. I want to share what I found because it wasn't easy to find, and I am not unusual. So if you're out there and you have a doctor who is not addressing what's really wrong with you, do not stop. You might have to try to jump over that wall from 20 different directions, but if you keep going after that wall, you'll get over it. And
so have they tested this, on fibromyalgia?
It works. Okay. Autoimmune is got 140 different names, and fibromyalgia is one of them. And they keep adding names to it all the time. And interestingly enough, I have undefined autoimmune disease, and I joke that on a Chinese menu I have a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B and a little bit from column C.
I'll take a number 33, please.
Correct. I don't fit into, I'm not a round, I never was, a round peg that fit into a round hole. So what the new thinking is in functional medicine is that they're not different diseases. It's one disease that manifests itself in different ways in different people's bodies. So if you have fibromyalgia, you probably had Epstein-Barr virus at some point in your life, which I did. I had mono. That's what Epstein-Barr is, because then it attacks your muscles in a way that it might not attack somebody else. In my case, it was attacking my muscles and my joints, but it was causing other problems as well. Somebody else, it will attack their thyroid. Somebody else, believe it or not, it'll attack their skin. Eczema and psoriasis are autoimmune diseases. Diabetes, which I had just gotten right before I had all this tough trouble. Diabetes is now considered in the autoimmune family.
Type 2.
Type 2 and also a little bit type 1. What you do for all of this also has positive impact on type 1.
Okay.
ADHD. 53% of our children have some kind of a chronic illness. And that's all related to things that cause autoimmune disease, even though they aren't necessarily in that family. They cause inflammation. And I wrote the book for people with autoimmune disease. I have come to realize inflammation is most of our chronic illness. It even is cancer and dementia and Parkinson's. All of those diseases start at some point with inflammation. And so where does inflammation start? Inflammation starts in the gut. Depression starts in the gut. All these chronic pains and illnesses start in the gut. Hashimoto's and Graves' disease start in the gut. IBS is a gut problem, and it starts in the gut. So if you clean up your gut, you have to do that first before you can start to heal. When it gets really complicated, it becomes all kinds of other things. If you have MS, it's much more complicated than what I have because it has manifested in a way in your body that is affecting your nerve coverings. And so as it gets a hold in your body, it becomes more complicated. But the way you start to clean it up is always the same. You heal something called leaky gut. And if you heal leaky gut and you heal the gut wall and you get your digestion working properly and you eat lots of real food because that gives you nutrients, it kind of made sense when I started reading that. I needed to eat more real food and not processed food. Processed food is all chemicals. So, well,
that's 100%. So, I mean, couldn't it just be fixed and solved if the government would actually regulate this nasty shit they put in all the restaurants and everything else, the grocery stores? I mean, when you could put a bag of lettuce nowadays in your refrigerator, and that bag of lettuce, if you've ever had a garden, you can keep a bag of lettuce for maybe a week, right, before it starts turning brown. But if you go look now and you take a grocery store bag of lettuce and you put it in your refrigerator, that thing's going to last 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks because of the plastic and everything else they put on there.
Right. You don't want it.
No. Thank God we are not great at growing a garden, but we do attempt. And store-bought stuff ends up going to the chickens and goats and all that stuff. But,
I mean, you can buy a McDonald's hamburger and it doesn't change for 5 years.
Right.
I mean,
it still tastes good as hell. I mean, I'm just going to say, I'm still eating McDonald's hamburger.
Yeah. I mean, you're putting pure chemicals into your life. When I started researching, and I discovered I had hundreds of chemicals in my life, I was angry because my first reaction was, why the heck is the government not protecting me? And believe it or not, it's protecting me even less today than it was 6 years ago.
Well, and there's your first problem.
All the regulations away.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody thinks the government's protecting you,
it's not.
You're asinine. I mean, that's all.
At the end of the book, I talk about the fact that I want everyone to join me and become an army of one. Because, number one, I don't have too many chemicals. I mean, I probably have some, but I've eliminated literally hundreds of them. And if we all join together and we do that, we can start the big companies to change. And it really is starting. When I started this 7 years ago, finding a makeup that wasn't toxic to put on my skin was practically impossible. And now there are dozens of organic cosmetic companies.
And I would challenge anybody, just because I had a friend that owned a cosmetic company once upon a time, I challenge anybody that wears makeup to do me a favor, just go type in rendering plant into a Google search and see what that is. If you want to see how makeup's made, and I challenge whether you put it back on your face or not, just go look at a rendering plant and see what you're actually putting on your face.
Yeah.
It's pretty
I was buying very expensive French cosmetics. They were a 9 on a 10-point scale. I had an itchy scalp for 25 years. Ends up I was allergic to the toxins and the synthetic ingredients in all the shampoos. I have found a shampoo now that's a 1. You could eat it practically and it would be great. And my head's not itchy anymore. So it was really eye-opening as I got into all these products and started looking. But the thing is, the Institute for Responsible Technology believes that a 5% shift, see, not that big, 5% shift is needed before big food, big agriculture, big cosmetic companies, all these companies take a look at what's going on because they'll feel the pain if they're losing 5% of their business. And
I'm going to challenge that's going to be a lot bigger number than that because to move a nation, it's going to take a lot bigger shifts than that.
No, that's just the start.
Okay.
And what's happening is big companies are now buying the organic companies. Applegate meat was bought by Hormel. Hormel is a really dirty company, but they bought Applegate, which is clean organic meat. But when he sold it, he actually wrote in there that they had to maintain his formulas for making it, or they were going to have to pay some huge fine. So some people are protecting their products as they get sold by big food. Some are not.
But here's the additional problem with this. So my wife, we went on a particular diet, I don't remember which one it was, where we for a while eliminated bread from our diet, right? We just completely removed bread. And our bodies over the years we built up a natural tolerance for it. When we got off that diet, I was able to go back to bread, no problem. I think it's just from the Marine Corps and the shit you put in your stomach. It's got this iron gut, I guess. But she tried to go back to bread and got violently sick. I mean, scarily sick. And even to this day, she's finally been diagnosed with celiac. And
she has the gluten sensitivity.
Right. And now fully gluten sensitivity. And what basically they told her is she's had it her entire life. It's just by consuming bread, she built up a tolerance for it. And the argument that I always get into people with is, well, if you build up a tolerance once, you can do it again. I said, yeah, but the difference being you got to go through a lot of misery to get there.
And if you have celiac, it's not worth it.
Right.
I actually thought I had a problem with gluten. And then we went to Europe and I was eating pasta, which was organic. And it ends up, I do not have a problem with gluten. I have a problem with glyphosate, which is what they're dousing our wheat with, which gives them a bigger yield. And then that goes into all of our processed foods, all of our breads, if they're not organic. All of that toxic herbicide is in our food. And that's what was making me sick. So if I'm very careful to buy the organic, I can eat bread, I can eat pasta. But a lot of people do have a gluten problem. It ended up that was not one of mine. But I react horribly to all the herbicides and pesticides, and they are in huge quantities on our food. If you
absolutely, and that's the frustrating thing for my wife is you go to a grocery store, and once upon a time, I mean, there was all these gluten-free options, but when you only have a very small portion of the population that have this problem, they're not selling enough. So now all the gluten options are gone. And
I was getting sick from the gluten-free things that I was eating. There's something in those that was going straight through me. Wasn't pretty. Yeah. So if I eat organic flour, that's wheat, I'm okay. If I eat those, I'm not. Except that when I bake with almond flour and coconut flour. And it's really yummy. You can find ways around this. And so
we use a flour called
Heck no, we eat really well.
Well, we use a flour for everything called Cup for Cup, and it's amazing. I've never read the back of the thing other than, people that have gluten intolerance, whatever, can use it. And it's just like baking with a regular flour. It's fun. And that, you don't have to get all the xanthan gum and all the different flours and everything. So, but part of the problem is most people, myself included, don't care. Right? I don't care what I'm consuming. I've been healthy my entire life, and I may regret this some point in my life.
Yeah, it builds up. It's about toxic load. It starts almost 20 years before it rears its ugly little head. And that's why I said, we don't stop and listen to our body. I didn't stop and listen to my body. And so little things start to happen to you, and you're just sort of bulldozing through them. It sort of passes through your head real fast, and then you don't think about it. But as the toxic load builds, eventually, cha-bing, it goes over the top, and then you reach what I call the you're sick and tired of being sick and tired phase.
Right.
And when you reach that phase, you want to change because you don't want to hurt like that. So it's better if you start when you get the first signs and you clean up, because you'll live a much happier, healthier, longer life.
Well, what about like beer and alcohol? And I'm being a little bit funny when I say that, but I'm also asking in serious, because they use barley and hops and everything else in making a lot of that stuff. Doesn't the distilling process kill a lot of the toxins and everything in those? No,
Right.
They're still there.
They're still there. They travel with that for life. And when they get in your gut, they reproduce even. Bt toxin, which is in GMOs, it gets into your stomach, and it's the gift that keeps on giving. It's toxic in the first place, and then it just duplicates, creating more toxin. So that I don't think there is organic beer, but if there was, that would be a better choice.
I guarantee somebody's made it. Somebody's made it out there. If not, there's a market for it.
And there are organic wines, because they've discovered grapes are really dirty. And so if you're going to drink wine, I recommend that you go organic, because nobody's going to convince me that eating all of these herbicides and pesticides is going to be good for me. I mean, in the beginning, I eliminated it because I wanted to vote with caution, because I didn't want to hurt like I was hurting. But you need to get rid of them, because it will impact your health at some point. And so
here's one thing that I find is once somebody chooses a lifestyle, so whether it be working out, whether it be what they're eating, their diet, maybe it's, they're into the fantasy role-playing, LARPing type things. Once somebody chooses a path, the problem with how they communicate is everybody goes over the top with it, right? And they preach at people that you must change your lifestyle because they have seen what it's done for them. I mean, chiropractic is one of the worst doing this, is chiropractic.
And I actually have people tell me that I don't do that. Very first time I talked to a group of business people at a lunch and learn that my broker put together. And the very first guy who walked up to me and he said, "Whatever you tell me to eat, I'm not going to do it." And I looked at him and said, "And you want to know something? I don't care." What do you mean you don't care? You're here to tell me how I'm supposed to eat. I said, "No, I'm not. I'm here to educate you. What you do with it is not mine." I said, so if you don't want to start with food, start with something else. There are chemicals in what you're cleaning your house with and washing your clothes with, and even the stress, the not getting 7 hours of sleep, toxic relationships, ants, anxious negative thoughts, toxic lack of exercising. All of that impacts your health just like all the toxins in your food do. So start somewhere. Everything you eliminate that's toxic is one step closer to health. I don't care if you start with food. I just taught a class online, and people call me and say, "Why aren't you angry that I'm doing this and this and this?" Because it's not my life. It's your life.
I like that.
My job is to give you the information. Your job is what you want to do with it. That's the agreement we have with each other. So will I encourage you to start eating organic and eat all the colors of the rainbow from a farm as close to you as possible? Yeah, because that's the optimum. Because if you do that for your body, you're giving it nutrients, and it knows what to do with those nutrients, and it wants to make you healthy.
So how do you get organic affordable?
Actually, I just did a list of all kinds of things. The first thing is I just found a company that just came to California. I don't know how far across the country there are, but they're called Imperfect Produce. So for half of the money that I was spending for a farm to deliver organic vegetables to me, I now got for $30 enough to fill up my entire stove with beautiful produce for $30. And it's imperfect. So the red potato might be a little, and the broccoli has a lot of things on one side and nothing on the other. It's imperfect, but it still is full of nutrition. It still was just picked. And I'm like so impressed because for half the money, probably even cheaper now than what I was buying conventionally before I got sick, you get a whole lot of vegetables. And you can tailor your box to what they have available that you want.
Well, let me ask them, but I mean, if half of that broccoli is inedible, you got to cut that portion off.
But it's not inedible. It just isn't as fluffy as the other side. It's imperfect, but it still has all the nutrients in it.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's not like
my green peppers, instead of being perfectly round, they had a dent in them. Is that going to?
But there's still a whole pepper.
But it's still a whole pepper.
Okay.
They actually even sent me 2 little eyes to stick on my favorite vegetable and send them a picture of how much I love that, which I think is a riot. So that's the first thing. I do all of my hard good grocery shopping through a company called Thrive Market. You pay a fee. It's, I think, $45 for the year. And then you save 25 to 40% on all the stuff you were going to the store to buy anyway. And then they deliver it. So I don't even have to leave the house to go get it. It just arrives on my doorstep. And I save a lot of money. Vitacost has a lot of things where you save money. There are companies popping up which will save you money doing organic. I eat very clean meat. I eat grass-fed, grass-finished, pastured beef.
God, if you get a grass-fed beef, I mean,
it's expensive.
Extremely expensive.
But the key is we don't eat as much as we eat. So your plate should only have a protein source as big as a deck of cards. That's
hell no! All right, you and I are we're gonna disagree on this one only because I'm doing it in fun completely.
Yeah, no,
right.
Texas boy, I expected that you were gonna want lots of meat.
Yeah, I mean a steak that's on my plate, it better fill the whole damn plate. And, you know, you need a secondary plate for your potato or your corn or whatever else.
For your green and other color vegetables.
Right. I'm a growing boy, and if I'm getting me a T-bone, a ribeye, or whatever else, I want to know that thing is there. So,
but if I tell you what's in that meat that you're buying conventionally, it's really disgusting.
Well, just for the record, we buy both. So
okay, good.
We have butchers right next to us that have friends with farm relationships and everything. So we get it straight from the pasture.
Conventional meat has hormones in it and antibiotics in it. And not only that, when they go to kill the animal conventionally, you get all his stress hormones because he is treated so poorly. And trust me, I had plenty of my own stress hormones. I don't need it from the animals I'm eating. I had almost no cortisol by the time I got to the functional doctor.
I'm not going to pick a fight with all the PETA world people and all of that, but animals were put here for us to consume. So
I don't disagree with that. And I eat meat, and I need the B12 from meat. I have other health coaches who go into the fact that it's not humane and why would I eat meat? Because my body, I tried to go vegan and my body was not happy. You have to learn to listen to your body. I really felt icky. And soy is a sensitivity. So that would be a problem if I didn't eat meat because that's one of the main sources for protein if you're vegan.
Well, and I always think it's funny that vegans, vegetarians, and all those people that can't eat meat try and make meat-like items. It just cracks me up. I mean, just go eat meat, all right? Quit trying to make it close. I mean, if you want a damn burger, go get a burger.
Meat-like items have all kinds of chemicals in them. And soy is 90% genetically modified. So you're getting a healthy dose of glyphosate or Bt toxin in your soy. So
good. So now anytime my vegan friends come to me and they're like, hey, you should eat a soy burger, I'm like, dude, that is straight toxins. I'm out. You just gave me the excuse. All right, I'm using it.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And I know some people don't eat certain types of meat and stuff for religious reasons and all that, and I'm not knocking that, right? That's how you were raised and you're following. But I just laugh that I'm like, okay, if you can't eat it, don't try and imitate it and make a fake version of it.
Right. Agreed. Agreed. I'm with you on that. And when you look at what's in it, it's not pretty. So you're better off with the real thing.
Well, in my opinion, I'm better off just not knowing. I mean, they say ignorance is bliss. I'm good with that. I don't remember somebody once upon a time, they're like, have you ever looked at how something's made? I'm like a hot dog. do you know how a hot dog is made? I'm like, I don't care. I don't want to know what's in there. I like a hot dog. Don't ruin that.
Buy an Applegate hot dog because then it's with all that stuff.
We tried the Applegate stuff, and it's you're so accustomed to a taste and texture, and Applegate's an acquired taste. You know, I know it's a lot healthier, it's a lot cleaner, it's everything.
And believe it or not, he was a vegan. He couldn't stand what the stuff that his family was eating, so he started Applegate to give them cleaner meat because he couldn't stand what they were eating, even though he was vegan and he wasn't eating it anyway.
That's fine.
But remember, it's about toxic load. So if you want to eat your hot dog, it's not the end of the world if you're cleaning up toxins in other areas of your life. You have to sort of pick and choose where you're going to get your toxins from.
Okay, so I have free-range chickens. Well, they're close to free-range on my farm. And we're eating, you know, duck eggs and chicken eggs all the time. Is that enough to balance out my toxic load?
No, it just isn't adding more toxins on your toxic load.
Yeah, because you don't know how much I'm eating fast food and everything else.
Right. If you're eating fast food, that's pure, excuse my language, S-H-I-T. If you're eating a lot of processed food, if you can't pronounce something on the label of that processed food, you don't buy it. And one of the things they're doing is, you probably know MSG is not good for you, right?
Right.
It now has 18 different names so that you can't find it.
Well, and we didn't know for the longest time growing up, a gentleman I called Uncle Manuel, phenomenal cookie, but it was with my best friend's uncle. And actually, I think it's my best friend's great uncle. But phenomenal cook, and I've got his recipe, his cookbook. And it's so funny to go in there, and I didn't know for years until after I got married that a lot of his recipes called for accent, which is an old white seasoning. And, you know, when my wife and I got
when we didn't know MSG was so terrible for us.
Right, absolutely. And you know, so I'd go cook all these recipes and it would call for accent. I'm like, okay, put accent in there. And I remember the first time I made chili for my wife using his recipe, she's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? What am I doing?" "You can't put accent in the food." I'm like, "Why not?" She goes, "That is straight MSG." I'm like, "What the hell is MSG?" You know,
it's a neurotoxin.
Yeah, it's not good for you. I do know that one. So, but it's just funny is you guys have got one hell of an uphill battle on your hands. You know, because
I'm about to turn 70. When I was a kid, all the oils that we used, we suddenly got told were bad for us. So we all switched to vegetable oils, corn oil, soy oil, because those were the good oils. Well, that was a con job. Now, all the oils we used to use are the good oils, and we're getting rid of all the vegetable oils because they're doing damage to our body. And canola, which was named for Canada where it comes from, and they made it rhyme with granola so that you'd think it was good for you. Doesn't matter if it's organic or if it's conventional because it's bad for you. It's just not good for you.
So what about lard? Is lard
is actually great for you.
Yes.
They told us to get rid of lard.
Right? I grew up on lard with breakfast, and I can hear all the vegans across the world screaming at the moment when I say that. But, you know, we used to do these deep-fried biscuits that were called cannonballs, and you take a big old freaking vat of lard, you turn it into hot grease, you drop the biscuits in, and you drop them in powdered sugar or cinnamon. Amazing on camping trips. Right. I miss those days.
Yeah, I use ghee. I'm sensitive to dairy. So I can't have butter, but I can have ghee, which is clarified butter, which takes the casein and the whey out of it, and it's just as delicious as butter. So that's what I use to cook, and that's a very healthy oil. Olive oil is only good if you're using it in salads. It doesn't have a high enough burn point to use it for cooking. But I suddenly started wondering why some olive oils were so cheap and so light in color, and other olive oils were very expensive and real olive color. It's because the mafia got involved, and they're cutting the olive oil with all the cheap oils. So if it doesn't have a certification on it from Italy or Spain or Greece, or if it's not from California, who regulates that their olive oil is olive oil, you're not getting olive oil in that bottle, which is pretty disgusting. Even in restaurants, if I ask for olive oil, I make them bring me the bottle because it's an 80% canola, 20% olive oil blend. So I often
you're
put
that
olive
lady.
oil when I want to have a salad, huh?
So you're that lady. I waited tables once upon a time in my life.
I'm a pain in the ass.
Oh, I guarantee it. You either get the big purse bringing all your own shit in, right? Or you're like, show me how that's made. I'm like, Jesus Christ, lady, just eat your food.
Usually I call ahead of time.
Right.
Because I don't want to do it to the poor waiter. It has nothing to do with him.
100%.
I have all 18 of my sensitivities on a business card with my face on it. So when I give it to them, would go to the kitchen, they know who to bring it back to because they don't forget who was the crazy woman that gave them that card. But I've usually already talked to the kitchen before I go, because if I don't pay attention to what I put into my body, I get sick. I get what's called a flare, which means I can gain 5 pounds overnight.
But part of it is because you've cleaned your system, just like my wife removing gluten from her diet and then becoming sensitive to it. Now that you've cleaned your system, it's almost like a double whammy effect when you try and reintroduce it into your system. True?
Yes and no. When I first eliminated my 18 guys, I was told that after a year I might be able to start to reintroduce them. For me, that was not true. For other people who I have worked with, it is true. I mean, I really miss cheese, and I keep trying it. Sheep's cheese or goat cheese. It's not going to happen.
This is why I don't want to know things, because if you ever took cheese out of my diet, shoot me now, right?
There actually are some plant-based cheeses now that are pretty delicious.
That's not even a thing. You can't call it cheese if it's made from a plant.
Yeah, we just bought a cheddar cheese that is made from cashew nuts, and it's actually quite delicious, to our surprise.
That's like trying to convince me that soy is a hamburger. It's just not a thing.
Well, when you can't eat the other stuff, it's a blessing that you can find something that you like.
I absolutely get that. When we can find the good gluten things for, my wife to eat, and, you go to a bakery and they do have gluten options and things like that, gluten-free options. It is fun because that's her biggest thing she misses is, just grabbing a loaf of bread, throw it in the toaster and, making sandwiches.
And if you came to my house for dinner and I told you what you were eating, you would think it was really weird. But I have learned to cook really delicious things that are really bizarre. I make white sauce out of cashews and a half a cauliflower. And I make clam chowder out of it. I make Swedish meatballs out of it. And company will come and go, what is this? You got to be jiving me. But it's delicious because I like to eat. So I have fiddled around with it so that I can cook. And you can be really happy with the net result because otherwise I don't want to make it. Why do I want to eat something that's icky? So I have learned to cook, One of my first clients, she said, I can't get away from potatoes, which have 76 pesticides on them, because my husband loves mashed potatoes. I said, do me a favor. Try making mashed cauliflower. Yep. Don't tell him what it is. Just give it to him and see what happens.
Now, I will say I love mashed cauliflower, but you can't get away from the texture. I have gone
you can if you have a fine enough machine. I have a Vitamix. Do you have a Vitamix?
No, I don't have a Vitamix, but I got
It gets all fluffy like mashed potatoes. Okay. But it's because it's got such a fast blade. And her husband said to her when he was done, those were the best mashed potatoes I ever ate in my whole life.
I get it. I mean, because they are good. I mean, and you can go so far as making tater tots and everything else out of them,
Right. Right. And pizza crust.
Yep. Good stuff. So, wow, girl, this has been a fun adventure. And thank you for allowing my smart ass come out through all this.
I got a little smart ass in me, too.
I enjoy it. Well, one, how do people find your book? How do they get in touch with you?
My website. He made a joke about Muse in my website. I am Cheryl with a C, CHERYLM, which is Meyer, my last name. Cheryl M. Health. Muse, MUSE.com. I actually did a podcast where he kept calling me the moose through the whole podcast. It's Muse, MUSE, because I want to inspire you to be pain-free. So you go to my website. There's a tab called Store, and under there you can buy my book, or you can go to Amazon and buy my book. And my book is called It Feels Good to Feel Good, and it's not a little book. And you're going to learn more about me than you ever wanted to know because I tell my story throughout the book. It has not only do I tell you what I removed, but I tell you what I replaced it with.
Awesome.
And if you buy the book, if you write to me, I'll send you a workbook. Because people keep going, oh, it's overwhelming. I can't do this. Yeah, you can. You read a chapter, you print that chapter in the workbook, you write down what you found is toxic and what you're going to replace it with when you run out of it. Because it's about toxic load. So you're not going to go throwing everything in your house out. You're going to do it gradually. It took me 6 years. So if you buy the book, write to me through the website and I will send you the workbook because it is huge in terms of helping you get through it all. And my website is loaded with great information. So when you get in there, noodle around because I have great blogs. I have a whole tab for free stuff because I've now done 7 summits and you give away free information every time you do a summit. So I posted it because everybody might as well have it. I'm not in this to make money. I am in this to help other people not hurt. And so if you follow my It Feels Good to Feel Good Facebook page, I just did a free class and you'll see the link and the recording is there and you can listen to a whole hour about why it's important that you do this and where all the toxins are kind of as an overlook. And now I'm doing a 6-part class on the fact that food quality matters, which is $50 for 6 classes, which makes them, I think, $8 a piece. Yeah. But then you get access to me and all kinds of goodies. So I am very passionate to help you if you want to stop hurting and you want to clean up, and if you're sick and tired of your doctor not giving you more than 6 minutes, your first appointment with me is free, and I have you tell me your story because I'm going to listen to you. I have people who get up after their first hour and they hug me because no one has listened to them their whole life about what's bothering them and what hurts. So, and then I'm amused because if you hire me to coach you, I can lead you and inspire you because I have been through it all. And one of the great joys of being as old as the hills as I am is I've been through everything. I've been through bad relationships. I can help you with that. I've been through bad health. I've been through ups and downs with my own business as an entrepreneur. So I can guide you through a lot of the pitfalls of life, which is probably the biggest joy of growing old.
That's so awesome. This is how I wrap up every show. So get ready for this. I do stump some people. So if you were to leave my audience with a quote, a phrase, a saying, a motto or a mantra, something they can carry with them on their journey, especially when they're going through maybe some tough times, what would be that quote or phrase that you would say, remember this?
That one's easy. Own your own life.
Beautiful.
You can accomplish anything, and the key is to choose to do it. If you choose not to hurt, you'll find a way not to hurt. If you choose to be successful in business, you'll find a way to do it, but you got to own it yourself. Don't just believe someone like your doctor to be the who said of the greatest magnitude, because no one knows your body like you do, so own it. If you own it, the world is unlimited to you. So...
Beautiful. Cheryl, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing your journey with us.
Thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Thanks for listening to Donnie's Success Champions podcast. If you'd like to hear more about our current guest today, or if you'd like to hear stories from our other guests on the show, come hang out with us on our website at successchampspodcast.com. I really appreciate you tuning in. If you need to reach out to me for any reason, you can catch me at Donnie@DonnieBoivin.com.